it's like every single client is unique and special. And so we have to treat them as such, which also means that our workflow has to be treated as such. So how do we address that? So that is going to be part of our discussion today. So you don't need therapy. You're here for a cure.
Awesome.
Yes. And so while I've been talking, Heather, it looks like we are live streaming. Does that look like we're fixed on Facebook?
It looks like we're live streaming, but I'm still not seeing it in here. So I'm just going to double check. When I go in, I can see it, but for some reason, it's being, oh, here we go. Go live now. Hold on.
It wouldn't be a proper meeting or webinar unless the first few minutes is determining one piece of technology or can audio work or.
Okay.
No doubt.
I think we're just about, we are live. We are now live on Facebook. So
I see
all of our Facebook friends, I apologize for being late to the party. I was having a little bit of, I'm still figuring out this whole like new live producer thing. And yeah, so I've been practicing, but we're live. We're good. So
yeah, you went to the green screen special edition again.
I'm green.
Yeah, yes. You're green. We're green with envy that you're green, but that's
like.
Is it better now?
No, you're totally green.
I think you have to turn off the camera again and go back on.
All right, hold on. I've been having.
I'm not even sure how to.
I'm looking at it now. Am I green again?
Yeah, you're totally green.
It's pretty cool though.
Kind of Emerald City. Yes, Kat's like totally correct. Heather, you are still green.
I'm trying to like plug in all of my stuff. Hold on. Last time I had to unplug my camera. I'm going to turn that off, unplug it, plug it back in, and see if that works. Today.
It does look like
watching night vision
goggles. It's exactly right.
All right.
It does. Like for a minute, I was like, "Is it just me?" No. Heather's really green.
I'm still green.
Totally green.
We got to roll with green.
I'm gonna have to.
You know what? You know what? If you understand and can build your processes, and you go through today's lesson, then you can also go green.
You can also go green.
Automation, efficiencies. It's the way of the future.
Oh my gosh.
I know everybody is green with envy that that they can't be green like me, but we're just gonna have to go with the flow.
This is the St. Patty's edition of the Happy Hour.
I'm just dying over here.
The green version. Well, we were just talking about frogs. I mean, maybe I should put on like these green glasses. So now, I don't know. I'm just being silly now. All right.
You're
so
totally
we're
green.
super excited that Ian, you're with us again because we adore you. And you're always so much fun to have on Apple.
You're not green.
You're not green anymore.
I'm not green. Cool. All right.
Okay. So here we go.
So we're going to go. Sorry, we were a little late to the party, everybody. And thank you for being patient with us. You got to love that technology. So, all right. So today we're going to talk about how to easily document your processes with Ian, who is like the process master, right? Process master. He's taught me almost everything I know, I think, over the last, how long have we known each other, Ian, now? Like a really long time. And you've taught me so much about it.
Probably a decade at least, maybe. Yeah. I don't know if I taught you that much. You pretty much.
You totally taught me. I just
pulled it out of you.
That's funny that you say that because it is inside of us. We do know our processes, but it is getting it out of us to slow down and to stop and stop for a minute and to get it out of our brains. You're right. I mean, that is the hard part. Mm-hmm.
And what's cool about this episode is we're going to show you easy ways that Liz and I and Ian have figured out how to document processes to make it not hard. Because I feel like you're right, Liz, when you're in a firm and you're like, I have to get this out of my brain and into a system in order to grow and to delegate the stuff I have to do, right? Mm. And that's the hardest part, is making the time for that. But then once you actually figure out the system for documenting the processes, then you can delegate the documenting the processes part, right, to other members of your team. So it's really coming up with the plan, setting the deadlines, and then, implementing. So I'm Heather. I'm Heather Satterley. I have a firm called Satterley Training Consulting and another firm called Satterley Accounting Services. And I love technology and automation and apps. And so that is really every part of my life kind of revolves around that. Except when I'm horseback riding. I'm now horseback riding. That is not an app. That's a real live animal, and it's very big, and she's awesome. So, yeah. So welcome.
Well, we're glad that you're here, and green or not, I'm glad you're here. So I'm Liz Scott, and I do some things that are very, very similar to Heather. Our firm focuses on businesses who use QuickBooks and then the ecosystem that revolves around that. And so one of the things that we really like is systems. And so we are starting to really dive into some industries and focus on niches. And so that's been part of our goal this year, is to focus on a few industries, which makes documenting processes really interesting. Because if you're thinking about some industries, and I'll give you an example of like franchises that we're kind of talking about right now, that the franchises really like processes. And so once you figure out your processes and you document them, then they're repeatable. And it makes it really, really nice to be able to share that workflow and grow your team if you know how you do things and you're able to get it out. So that's one of the big things that we enjoy, is we actually like tech. And we had a team meeting this morning, and we were talking about all of the tech that has changed over 2020, and that we as a team need to go back and look at our tech stack to make sure that our tech stack hasn't grown and changed a lot over 2020, because there's been a lot of development that has happened over the course of the last 18 months, which is exciting.
It is exciting. And this is Ian Basin, the co-founder and chief customer officer of Karbon, an amazing person who's had a really long and amazing career in accounting technology. So tell us a little bit about you, Ian, and your story, and why you co-founded Karbon, and what, the why.
So I'll go one step back, which goes to here. I'm actually by trade, I'm an industrial engineer. So I spent my years back ages ago making semiconductor wafers go faster in factories. That was my job. So I worked on the supply chain stuff, and that's where I learned processes and so forth. I never thought it would come back full circle, almost 30 years later to where, ultimately leading to what we do in Karbon. But I found my way into the profession because I had done a startup ages ago and it didn't do well, and learned that finances were the most important thing on the planet. And having folks like everyone on this call right by your side on any of these journeys is super critical. So I dedicated everything after that point, after that horrible experience, to being part of the solution versus being part of the problem. So that's what landed me at Intuit, ultimately landed me in Xero. And then the reason why we started Karbon was in the observations that we had in both places. You can work right next to the person that's in an office. If you were in an office, you have no idea what they're doing. And if you have to jump in to help somebody out, if you don't have something that allows for you to see where you've been, everything that's gone on, all the information that you need, then ultimately it makes it really hard for you to work together to get the job done. So Karbon was really that collaborative platform. And one of the big things was, we're going to talk about today, Karbon is only as good as the process that you have. The process itself is not the technology. The process is what you do. We're going to show you how you do that, and you can take that into a technology concept. But if you take one thing out of today, it's just figure out how you do your work, document it down on paper, Scribby notes, and whatever, note, Excel, I don't care. But when you feel like you're able to get those, then that's when you can look at a technology to bolster it. So without doing that, the technology is not going to really help you, but the processes are the things that are going to move mountains for you. Is that good enough?
I 100% agree.
I showed up last time without the proper drink ready to go. So thanks for having me on the, we had done the one with Liscio beforehand. So kudos to Chris Farrell and the Liscio guys. So this is my second time here. So thank you very much for having me. And again, I'm super excited about talking about processes overall.
Well, I'm glad that you brought the proper drink, and I'm glad that you're back. And so, it's funny that you said what you said about making sure that you've got your processes out. And I want to pull up something that I'm going to share in a second. But Heather, you just have a slide up that I want to go ahead and let you speak to.
Oh yeah, do I just want to say a big old thank you to this episode sponsor Karbon, and so we're just super excited to have you here. And did I miss a slide? I totally missed that slide. Thank you to our champagne level sponsors, ADP, for being our champagne level sponsor, and helping to make the Appy Hour possible. So we really value our partnership with ADP, and and we're having a great 2021. So fantastic. And again, also thank you to Karbon. I don't know how I went through that slide, but I guess technology is not 100% my friend today, because I keep having all kinds of blips. So
it's okay. So let's go to the next one.
The next slide.
Yeah. So how to easily document your processes.
Yeah, let's get started with this.
Okay, so you get started and I have some ideas.
Awesome. So as we were saying, documenting your process takes time, which is why most of us don't do it, right? Because it's so time consuming. You're like, I don't have time to document my processes because I have to do the work. I need to get this client work out into my client. I have to build my business. But the big problem with that is that not documenting your processes will take so much longer. Because if you don't have your processes documented, how can you delegate tasks to other members of your team, and how can you scale your business? So you have to take the time, and it's not until you actually slow down and take the time to document your processes and get it into a system that you're going to be able to effectively scale your practice. That is, honestly, I believe this to the core of my being, because I've seen it, I've lived it, is that if you don't have that processes, documented, you're just going to be treading water. There's no way to get out of it. There's no way to have somebody take it off your plate and teach somebody and have them be successful at what they need to do.
I agree. And so is this a good time for me to share what we're doing currently and how we're kind of getting geared up?
Sure. Yeah. What we were going to go into next, Liz, is we were going to talk about what the components are of the process.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I would love to hear how you and your team are going through and documenting this so that you guys can scale, because you guys are in a growth mode and you guys are spending a lot of time documenting processes and automating, focusing on the automation of those mundane tasks.
We are. And so this is exactly where we're at right now as a team. And so one of the things that we are currently struggling with is exactly what you've got pulled up here. And so the who, the what, the when, the where, the how. And so in my head, I get it because I'm driving the train. And so in my head, it's solidified. I'm solid. But to be able to share it out, I've got to get it out and share it with my team. One of the things that we actually do as a firm is we help map processes for our small business clients, because a lot of them don't have this. And what I was struggling with was trying to share my vision with the team. And so we actually, as a virtual team, have decided to go and have a retreat. And we're going to sit down and, as a firm, do exactly this, where we map out all of the different processes. So that way, as a team, we understand what is our workflow. And then also, I just put it in chat. That is the tool that we're going to be using in order to put it on our hotel conference room board, to be able to say, this is what we're going to do to map it out. Because once you get out the components, then you can put it inside of a workflow. Then you can tweak it, but you got to know what you're doing.
Yeah, and so there's lots of different ways to map out the processes and actually get that information out of your brain and into something, right? And honestly, one of the best ways to do it is just to write it down. But I think it's important to understand that, you know, having the entire team that is going through the process have a voice is really the only way to accurately document it. So I love the idea that you're having a retreat and everyone's going to have a say in these processes, because it really is who, what, when, where, and how. And a lot of times we're only part of the process. So what we're doing affects somebody else's job. And so having the feedback from the other members to say, you know, maybe it's, you know, like for our bill pay process in our own firm, you know, having somebody say, well, I can get the bills scheduled, but it takes 3 days for Heather to approve them. You know, that's not true, by the way. But my point is that if that is a bottleneck, only through having that discussion and identifying what the different steps are and what's kind of holding up the process, are we going to be able to find a solution. So 100% agree with that. Now, a couple of things I wanted to talk about. And Ian, I really want you to, because I know you and I know that you have a lot of thoughts on this and you have a lot of expertise that you can share. How much detail do we actually need to get started and how deep do we need to go?
I was going to build off of what Liz was talking about. So one of the suggestions for the retreat that you had, it goes right into this detail.
Okay.
Is when you go to that session, if you go with just the whiteboard per se, it takes a lot of time for folks to kind of get involved with it and to start to do the mapping. If you took your processes and made one person owner of each one of them, start with the ones that are longer, and have them not write the whole process down, but just write what they view as you're not green anymore, what the major steps are. That allows you to create a framework or something that people can construct off of. And the detail then comes out as you have the conversation of what does it mean to prep? What does it mean to reconcile? What does it mean to advise? And each person will talk about their different patterns that they do. And you're looking for the similarities. And then you're looking for what variations exist. Because the variations are where the process has to flex for different contexts, different clients, different situations. It's also where the innovation exists. Because someone has had to figure out a different way because it just didn't work. And those was where the area where you want to have the discussion. The issue is on this is you can go really, really deep in the detail. When you actually want to systemize something, then you have to bring it back up and simplify it because then it's just too much information. But the detail is what leads to the procedures that you might do, that you might put in some place to reference for a new person. But the overarching piece is the high level stuff. It's the stuff you're going to use every day. So don't fall into the trap of getting too deep and too much in the detail. Make sure you pull yourself out of that because you don't necessarily need that in a checklist.
I love that. That's great advice because we want everybody to feel like they are part of this because they are. And if just because I have a great idea doesn't mean that it's realistic. And, you know, if we don't talk about all of the pieces, then it won't actually work. But if we're too stuck in the details, then we're not going to be able to see the big picture.
There's two pieces of it. Process improvement and change management go hand in hand. So the point that Heather made up, which is it's not that you have to have buy-in, but you have to understand kind of where it came from and ensure that it fits with what you have to do. Because the worst thing you can do is build it, hand it to someone, tell them to do it. And the first time they go through it, it doesn't match for what they're seeing and they don't understand it. Then they're not going to follow going forward. And you've actually taken an even further step back. So that change management is super important. You're back to green again.
I'm back to green again. All right. Well, you know, I don't know. It's clearly like a loose wire somewhere that I'm going to have to take everything apart and figure out.
You're not green for me, though. That's weird.
Well, maybe it's special for.
I'm just jealous. That's what it is.
Jennifer's asking how she can download the deck. We will have the deck uploaded to thehappyhour.com and you'll be able to download it there for sure. So I want to talk, I have a couple, and hopefully this is, everybody can read this, but I wanted to give a couple of examples of what a process mapping looks like. So this one is a business process map example. It looks like this is basically a sales process, right? Prospect to sale, right? So add potential spreadsheet. And if you go through this flow chart, it's documenting what are the steps that each person in this process are doing. Now, they have not identified the who here, right? They've identified the what, and they've identified the how, but we don't have the who here. So I would say that would also be really important. But using some apps, and we're going to go over those in just a minute, you could easily go in here and add like a comment of who it is, or you can use a chart that looks like this, that has the swim lanes that actually, shows you which department or which person is in charge of doing doing that particular
That
task.
process. I love this that you made.
Yeah, I didn't make it. I stole it, or I borrowed it. I didn't steal it. I'm not a thief, but I use Lucid, and that's one of the apps I'm going to talk to you about on the next slide. Just a spoiler alert there. I use Lucid Chart. For me, there's a ton of apps out there that do this, but for me, Lucid Chart is the most intuitive. And one of the things I love about it is they have a ton of templates that you can start with. So you're not recreating the wheel. So for example, this is one of their templates. It's an internal controls flowchart example, talking about accounts payable process, right? So this, I was just able to go out and start with it. I could change this into accounts receivable, billing, sales, whatever, and then I could go through and I could kind of change these. And what I like about it is when you add an icon here, there's a plus sign that just tells you to add another shape. So it's really intuitive to use. So this is what you're going to be looking at, and you're going to start out probably with what Liz has, with that big whiteboard where people are just putting down their thoughts and they're talking about, I'm doing this, and you're going to be writing it out. And then what's really nice is you can come into an app like Lucid Chart and you can clean it up and create like an SOP or something that is an official document for that process. And what's nice about this is as you do this for your own firm, you're going to learn a ton of skills. And those skills are really valuable, and your business clients will pay you to do this for their firm, and you can give them a really professional looking deliverable by using an app like this. So it's well worth the effort. And once you go through that process, I'm telling you, clients need this. This is where they go. This is where they get stuck in the mud too, is they don't have their documents processed, that they don't know what to do. And when they're having turnover of their team, they're reinventing the wheel a different way every time. And this will definitely is a huge value add to your clients. So
Well,
go ahead. Sorry. Do you want me to go back?
I was just going to back up what you just said, and I was going to show this later whenever we hit to the end. And so I was going to just drive home what you said. So just this week, I had a client who they didn't have any of their processes documented. And so my job was to do a QuickBooks conversion. And so that was my role. But then once I had my hands on, I determined, oh my gosh, they were missing quite a few different things. They didn't have documentation of job descriptions. They didn't have delegated job duties. And so this process mapping is exactly what we end up creating. And you can charge thousands for this. This is a well-paid gig if this is the kind of thing that you like to dig into.
And I would also suggest that if this is something that you are going to go into, you definitely want to take a change management course. And those courses are taught in most MBA programs, but you can just take the class that talks. I mean, when I did my master's, we did an entire semester on change management, understanding the dynamics of an organization. That was actually the most useful course that I took through the whole MBA program, was that course, because it really taught me how relationships within an organization and being able to influence behaviors within an organization, how crucial that is to our jobs as accountants, because we're asking our clients to change all the time. We're asking them to follow rules and do it a certain way. If we don't understand how to influence our clients and actually have them adopt those changes, we can't be effective. So that, I'm just telling you, if you have the chance to, to take a course like that, well worth it.
And I would even say that we as an industry, our industry is changing, and we know that we need to be able to be flexible. That whole thing where I was saying that the apps have changed during 2020. I mean, go back and look. That's a big thing, that we need to be able to pivot as needed, because our industry has been changing over the last 10 years, but even just the last year, there's been some big changes. And so I would say now that, starting to offer cash flow forecasting and starting to do, budgeting, that's kind of becoming the norm.
Right.
And so, those are things to be really thinking about. How do you pivot? And if you've got something that's written down, documented, then you're able to know where to pivot. But if you're a free for all show, you don't know where you need to go.
That's exactly right.
Couple of comments on that. So one of the things you mentioned there, cash flow forecasting. So your services you offer, you're trying to productize, and your processes you're trying to systematize, because that's what gives you profitability and gives you freedom, right? When you look at these sort of maps and whatnot, you start from a basic list, and then you're going to try to visualize it. And it can just be a simple chart. It can be a swim lane chart. But the reason for doing that is you document your as is, so you can go with the team and walk step by step, block by block, and question, why is that block there? Does it need to be there? And that's how you move from your current process. And if you want to refactor it to a 2B process for that continuous process improvement, which goes back to what someone was mentioning in chat, it is lean manufacturing. Because the idea here is your resources are very finite. And so you need to make sure that you're able to leverage them and make sure you get quality and repeatability. And that's what drives profitability. So that's why this stuff is really, really, really important, and something you just can't stop. You're constantly trying to figure out how to improve it.
Agreed. Well said.
So going into the apps, because we are at the hour, these are 3 apps that I have personally used in my life. Miro board, which used to be real-time board, is awesome. It actually does more than just flowcharts. It has, it is a true board, so it's interactive, just like Lucidchart. Visio is the Microsoft version. They have an online version or a desktop version. That actually was a lot easier for me to use when I first got started. And I'm not exactly sure why that was. I think one of the reasons was it was included in my Microsoft subscription. I didn't have to pay for it, which, we're accountants, right? We're frugal. But it also just made sense to me because I was used to Microsoft and kind of where everything was. And so it was easy to go from like Excel and PowerPoint and Word, and kind of, it just seemed pretty intuitive to me. I did try Miro and it wasn't for me. Like I tried it and it just wasn't intuitive. But I think, Liz, you really like Miro, right?
So that's not the one that I use either.
Oh, it's not. Okay. Well, I landed on Lucidchart, and I love Lucidchart. My team loves Lucidchart. That's the one that is the most intuitive for me. But my point here is that they all essentially do the same thing. They all have different interfaces. They all look a little bit different. The buttons are a little bit different, and they all have different features. So what I would say to you is try a couple of them to find which one fits you the best.
Yeah, I use all 3 of them, by the way. And
Really?
Miro is great for ideation. So someone said mind mapping. Yes. So it's good because it's pretty flexible. Lucidcharts we use when we're actually going to document someone live in the moment, and we need to have something that's collaborative and something that we can work together. Visio we use because in Karbon, we can export everything into Visio because it has more API connections to actually visualize processes straight from the product. And so we use all 3 of them. So they're all great products. They just have different purposes.
Yeah. No, that's great. Other apps that we're going to talk about, apps to record processes. So one of the hardest part is actually building something like this from scratch. There's an app that we had as our coolest thing several weeks ago called Scribe. And Scribe actually documents your processes as you complete them in computer software. So Liz is going to do a quick demo for you. I'm just going to quickly speak to Loom and Cloud App. Those are the video recorders, right? So I was just talking to my operations director, and I was saying that, I'm reviewing some of our bookkeeping work, and I'm like, there's stuff that I see that is, that I catch, errors and things that I catch in QuickBooks. I'm like, I don't really know how to tell my team how to see this stuff, because a lot of it is just analytical, and it's stuff that I've trained myself to do, and a little bit is just, having that intuition. And so what I do is when I review their work, I throw on, we use Cloud App, not Loom in our practice, throw on the Cloud App and I walk through what I'm looking at. And as I find things like, transfers that were recorded as deposits and expenses, I can talk to them how I know that that's what happened, and what they can look for in the future to find it themselves. So that's really helpful. And you can actually take these, either Cloud App or Loom, you can take a link of them and put them into a practice management app like Karbon, so that they can actually watch instructions. right? Which is really helpful. And that's for kind of like going into the nitty gritty. But I would love, Liz, for you to show everybody how Scribe works really quickly, because I want to get into Karbon.
Sure.
So I'm just going to stop sharing for a second.
Oh, you're green again. Okay, so
It's
the moment.
It's the moment.
Okay, so for those who miss Scribe, I'll just show really quickly that you can have it as a desktop feature, you can have it as a browser. And so what it does is it records your actions as clicks. So I just clicked here on the plus new, I click an invoice. And so each time that I click, it's documenting that step. If I click into this customer, it's going to click that step. Okay, so I'm going to stop my recording here because that's enough to be able to show you what is happening. And then what I do is then I take this, so I just created all of this workflow really, really fast. So what's cool about this is then now you want to have a way that you track this, and we use Monday boards, so we can take this coding and we can put it in our Monday boards. You can take it, you can put it inside Karbon, you can take it and you can put it inside all of your workflow tracking to be able to say, this is how we do things. And so the way that you do it is you grab the HTML code, copy this, and then I can come over here to my HTML translator and I can say, translate this code, grab it, here it is, here's all my code, and I can say everything that I just grabbed, everything I just grabbed, take it, put it on this document, and it's building, but take that and put it on this document, and now I've got a workflow to send either to my client, to replicate my processes, and then I'll show you. I was just saying that yesterday I had this client that didn't have documented processes. Well, that's exactly what I did here. As I came over and I said, okay, here it is, client. They needed to know how to do purchase orders, then receive, create bills and receive the goods and have bill payments. So there it is.
Yeah, no, this is amazing, Liz. And what we put these in Karbon now for our clients. And what this is that we were talking about how much do you put in your process, and you're putting in the steps that your team needs to complete. What this does is it captures the how, right? So we talked about that list of who, what, when, where, whatever, how. This is the how, and then the Scribe actually gets embedded into Karbon so that they know what to do. So if they're a new team member, they can just look at it. And it is awesome also for clients because it's really pretty. So I'm going to share my screen again so that we can get through these slides, and then I want to get into Karbon. So that's what it looks like. If you download the PowerPoint slides, there's a link in there. And then the other cool thing that you guys can do for those of you that are getting started is that Karbon has a bunch of process template. How many do you guys have now, Ian?
I lost count, but when they get done uploading, because I've been uploading them progressively over the last month, it'll be about 250.
So you can find these templates, and there is a link. I got to go grab it. Where was it? Or maybe
I'll put it in for.
Okay, thanks, Ian. And you can download these in Excel format. So you can download them in Excel format, or if you're a Karbon user, you can just add them to your Karbon account. And we created an Appy Hour ecosystem template pack, which you can see right there. And that includes, oh, it's opening it up because I did link to it. I want to go to the next slide. Thank you. And what it does is if you download it, it actually shows, like this one is the monthly accounting close with a third-party app. So it's just this is the actual process we use in my accounting firm. It actually shows the steps. It shows, you know, what you're doing and then the item title. And then if you're using Karbon, you literally just add it to your Karbon account and you can start modifying it for your clients and using them. So this is a huge time saver. There's another one in there, which is like a bookkeeping one that I saw in that is really good. That's a bookkeeping process. So you can download those. They're contributed both by Karbon, by some of our app friends, like Practice Ignition has some. We have 5, which Ian just threw in. And then other firms have shared them out too. So this is a great place for you to go and see what other accountants are doing and how they're documenting their processes. All right. And then this is what that looks like inside of Karbon. So we use Karbon in my firm, and this is what it looks like. It starts off with reviewing the client needs, and then we send a client task that says, let's get started with your monthly bookkeeping. And we modify, see how it says bank account 1, 2, credit card 1, 2. It basically, we go through and we use this template, and then we change it to reflect all of their accounts. And then what it does is it gives that client exactly what we want them to do. They don't have to try and figure it out. They have a task there, they upload the document, they mark it as done, and we're happy, and we can see their progress as we're going through. So it's pretty awesome. Awesome. So now I want to demo, Ian. I'm all excited. We're going to do a toast.
Getting to the glass. I didn't know I was supposed to wait for the toast.
Heather, you did an amazing job on that. You made those templates and you did a beautiful job. So,
you know, I would take the credit. Some of them I did make, but actually more than half of them were made by my operations director. So she made them. She's she's the one that's going through and documenting our processes. And so cheers to Abigail, because she's the one who made some of those, and she did an amazing job. So, and
thank you, Ian, for uploading those, because that's amazing that you can have that and share it out in Karbon to be able to have those workflows and not create them from scratch.
Exactly. That's the thing, is like, we don't do this because we don't know how to get started. Now you all have the way to get started. Like, that's your big gift today, is you now have a way to get started, which is amazing. So this is our drink for today, which I don't think any of us are actually drinking this one, but it's a really cool drink. I love absinthe. So I'm definitely going to try this, but I didn't have any whiskey. And so I couldn't I'm like, what am I going to put absinthe in with? And then will I be able to function during happy hour? So I'm definitely going to make this, but I'm not drinking it right now. So I love this.
Relatively a lightweight, so I didn't do it. But this actually is a drink that we, at the company, we prefer scotch and whiskey. And so this is one of the favorites from the staff. So this is actually one of the ones that we like to drink.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it. It looks delicious. So that's what's in mine.
Yeah, it looks delicious. What's in yours?
Whiskey.
Whiskey. Nice. Nice. Matthew, I find that it makes me absent minded. I love it. We can always count on Matthew for our pun. All right, I'm going to hand things over to you, Ian, so you can go in and show people how easy it is to go through and actually what it looks like to create a template in Karbon.
We're going to take from where you left off. So we talked about this particular template set, and I figured we'd actually tackle one of the harder ones, which was this monthly accounting one. Call out to the ADP folks, since they're the champagne sponsor. There's a few in there, as well as Practice Ignition Amelia. So there's, you can download these. We did create this template library so that when you go into it, you not only can add it instantly from a button into Karbon itself, but you can ultimately also download it from Excel, because the idea is you want to personalize it, you want to adjust it, you want to make it your own. And that goes back to that sort of retreat aspect. So what I've done, so folks, you guys can see what I'm working on here. I've actually taken the template and I've pulled out the tasks. You see all those tasks? So this would be akin to what Liz was doing on the whiteboard, right? She's got all the sticky notes. Afterwards, we're going to write all that down. We're just going to put it in a document, and we can start playing with it in an app, or we might go ahead and put it in Lucidchart. And then we might move it into something like Karbon. Okay, so that's kind of what we're doing here. All right, so we're going to go in here and into work. I'm going to go to the template section, and I'm going to get to where all those templates are at. Okay, and we're going to build one from scratch. So this particular template, again, I'm going to save ourselves some time. So you called it that, and we then know that typically we wanted to start the work off on the first of the month. We need to usually get a monthly accounting done by the 15th or the 20th. It's really up to you. And we're going to kick it off with the bookkeeper. So we're going to tell ourselves that. So when we create the template, I already have one. We're going to do version 2. Okay. I have to show what the finished product is after we get done creating it from scratch. So there we go.
Awesome.
So when you come into something like Karbon, we first want to set, this is where all that information dropped in. We want to do one really big thing here. In most workflow tools, and like Karbon, you want to set the service that you're doing. And so this actually is month-end close, or we could do accounting. So we'll pick accounting, okay? And that's where, on our side of the house, that's where all the automation, all the interesting bits get tied to the template itself. And now we get to where we get a blank area that we can work from. And so we're going to go ahead and take that information that's on the sheet, and I'm just going to copy and paste it. So we have all those particular items. I'll create a new section in here. We'll call it ready to start. Okay. I get to a blank this here where it's a new task. I can just paste it. And the system wants to build the template right instantaneously from that. And everything just drops in. Okay. So this is where now you've got your sort of procedural steps. And the way it works is we want to create the new template. We want to specify that work type. We want to add the tasks. We then want to figure out, do we want to interact it with some client interactions? Again, you could do that with like something like Liscio. You can do that with our client task functionality. You're going to add roles, due dates, optimize it, automate it, get the time and budget, and move on. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to do that really quickly, okay, to show you this how it's done. So in here, we know that typically for a month-end close, we're going to start with, we're going to prep a bunch of things, okay? We're going to then go ahead and ultimately, we're probably going to have to process some changes that occur. Again, it's kind of step 2 of this. Oh, I got a new section in here. So we'll just drag that down here. We'll rename it. Typically, we got some sort of review that happens, okay? And again, most of these are phases of things that you guys already do. We might advise a client, and then we might actually follow up and close out the job. Make sense? Now, this is where it's kind of cool. If I come up here and I look at what I've got, you can see here that you mentioned that you typically are going to send a bunch of client tasks. We're going to come back to that in a bit. But you can go ahead and make subtasks and all sorts of stuff. You just drag and drop, okay? So for instance, I know that my prep is generally everything that's really reconciliation and review. So that's all this stuff here, okay? Typically all the way down to, whoops, reviewing equity accounts. And we'll move the following up with a client, okay? I can just take this, I can drag it. Whoops, if I go down here, my mouse will behave. I can drop it, and there's my next thing, okay? And now I've been able to build this thing. It's really 3 tasks: manage the fades, reconcile, we're gonna follow up with a client. Pretty cool? Then we have to process a bunch of this stuff. So we had written this up in our meeting that we had. It was the adjusting journal entries. It was creating the financial reports, okay? We'll just slide that down into our process area, okay? We then need to do our review. Well, our review is really going to be creating these particular steps: reviewing the financials, interpreting the data, publishing the management report, okay? And that's where we put it down here. And then we're gonna ultimately advise the client, okay? So we may or may not do that, depends on the engagement. And then the last bit's really the follow-up that we have, okay? And that's where we close the books, update the documentation. And so it's pretty easy just to drag and drop and move things around as you want. Cool? Then when you get to a process like, go ahead, Liz, or Heather.
But it was me. I was just going to say that, yeah. And I mean, the other thing I want to point out is that this particular process, this template that it's modified from one that already existed in Karbon. So we just kind of made it our own. So that's the other cool thing, is that there's a whole library of these processes, templates that are already set up for us.
Exactly. So a lot of times you're starting from something that's not from scratch. So we're just going from the scratch one, which is more complicated overall. Now in this is a big difference when you think about workflow. The whole job is to engage the client. And so there's these things that you can do that create the client context so that you can actually do this as well. So we need info for your monthly bookkeeping, okay? And this is where we can engage the client, create tasks for them. And this is where, for your purposes, you had all this stuff you needed to ask for in order to start the monthly bookkeeping. And this is where we can just add a task, paste that same material that you had, and now I can ask for all those information, okay? And this here is where we can wrap it with an email. Again, we can use all these variables, as well as we can put reminder emails and nag them like every 4 days or 3 days, okay? So pretty cool stuff, okay? You also had this thing here where we're gonna follow up with the client that you had. So we're gonna go ahead and add another one in here, okay? And then again, here it would be additional info needed. And then I can go ahead and add this as a placeholder. So again, you can make it so that your templates are ready to go for whatever you want. Now, at this point, you have basically your template formulated the way you kind of want it. You can collapse this down and you can kind of see how you're going to get this done end to end, right? The step on this next is we need people to do stuff. So it's pretty easy. On all these things, you can go ahead and add bulk things. We need the actual bookkeeper to do the first step. We're going to have it done immediately on the start date, which is the 1st of the month. We're going to put the client to task here. We're going to give them 5 days. So by the 6th of the month, whoops, here, set the due date, 5th of the month, 5th after the start date. Whoops. Oh, my internet went out. So let me just refresh that. You ever see that happen? There we go. You said, if I remember right, that you do your prep by the 7th or 8th of the month. So we're going to go ahead and do this 7 days later. Okay. This is a faulty thing. So I'm going to give you guys a huge tip. Doesn't matter if you use Karbon, you use other products out there. This is the failure that most people do. Please don't do this. Change the role and say, hey, you know what, bookkeeper? I want you to do all these tasks. This right here will blow up the person's poor to-do list. They do this all on the same day, all at the same time. That causes a lot of chaos. So just go ahead and only assign the big tasks that people do. And that ultimately is where you're able to do that. Again, you can just use the construction of your parent tasks. That is a pro tip, and that will save the heartache of your poor staff who then have to have their to-do list blown up. Okay. Just to go through this, you ask for some missing information. We'll go ahead and get that in a couple days. We'll go ahead and again, change the role here. We're going to have our accountant jump in. We're then ultimately going to go ahead and set the due date. You said this was going to be a couple days. Our accountants are going to either get 1 day. You give them 1 day to do that part of the process. Actually, to correct that, I don't think that's the case. You have the bookkeeper doing that. So again, you can just change things as you go. Okay. Your accountant jumps in here. They're going to go ahead and, whoops, we're going to have the, whoops, not, we're just going to do the parent task here. Keep me honest on time because I'm trying to go fast, but not too fast for folks. We're going to give them a day.
I think you're good. I think you're good.
We're going to advise the client. Accountant's going to do that. They're going to do that in 2 days later. And then we're actually going to close out everything at the end. So our accountant's going to, oops, I'm not going to add automation yet. We're going to put our accountant up to task. And then we're going to go ahead and set the due date as the same day. Does everyone see that? That is a fully baked template. Now, the cool thing is, and this is why the technology helps out, you're able to automate everything in here. And so we can do really cool stuff by setting patterns and behaviors by when the work does certain things. We can change the status, we can change the due date, we can change the assignee, we can even go green, just like Heather did, but I can't control that in automation. So we can go ahead and when we start this piece of work, we can say, you know what, let's go ahead and change the status of the task is ready to start so people know to do it. We can also make sure that the owner of the work changes to make sure it's the person who's actually on task to get it done. So there's cool stuff like that. We can go ahead and when we send this out automatically, again, I think that was one of the things you did. You said, you know what? We're always going to ask for this automatically on the 2nd day of the month. So we're going to make sure this thing sends on its own. And when it does, we're going to automate it to say, hey, when the tasks in this section go to the client, change the status so we know that it's been sent to the client and we're waiting for information. And all these types of things is what powers this work dashboard. Okay. Just so folks know, you can go through this and you would add possibly 4 automators. You would change the task array to start. You would change the status of the work to equal the value of the header here, which is you're going to move this into the prep phase. You're going to go ahead and change the assignee of the work if you wanted to. You can change it to whoever you want. In this case, typically it's the person here. And you could change even the due dates. I could say, hey, client, I don't know when they're going to give this back to me. But whenever they do, we're going to update the due dates dynamically to give us 2 days to get it done. That's some of the stuff you can do with the automation. So once you go through that and you've automated, the only thing you left to do is to create the budget for it. Now, we're going to go down the route here and we're going to say, you know what? We're going to go ahead and add some estimates of what things are going to happen here. We're going to go ahead and say the accountant was doing review work, for instance. They're doing review and they're going to spend an hour to do that review. We're going to go ahead and say, hey, you know, the accountant is going to do accounting work here, or actually they were doing admin work because they were closing out the job and that was 15 minutes. We're going to go ahead and say that the bookkeeper was doing bookkeeping work and that was going to be an hour and 30 minutes. And now we can have a budget that we're running. And you can not only do budgets, but you can If you have permissions to do so, you can also do it in terms of dollars. So if I go back into my work template that we were working on, and this one was monthly accounting. Let's see here, it was monthly accounting. This is V2, and I can do the dollars. So let's say that you are now doing this on fixed fee for 500 bucks. And now we can track all that. Publish it. I can create work from it. We'll use this new template. I think it was V2. Everything defaults and creates on its own. This is monthly accounting for Happy Hour. Okay. We'll go ahead and put Acme as our company. We'll do the start date to be the 1st of the month. We'll go ahead and have this done on the 18th. It'll ask me who these client tasks go for because it's going to go out automatically. You know, I'm going to have myself be the accountant. I'm going to have my teammate Pax be the bookkeeper, and the work creates itself. And now I've got a template that we can use and check off, and it does all the different things we need to do. Make sense? Pretty cool, eh?
It's awesome. And I had just thrown into the chat that you can also make all this recurring where it says repeat, set up recurring work. You can set up the repeating work. And what I love about it, Ian, is that you can time that. So I can tell, you know, we want the work created, you know, maybe 3 weeks before or 3 months before, so we can see what's coming up in the pipeline, but we don't want the actual tasks created until later, until it gets closer to the month. And I love that. I do love that. And we also use the start date placeholders as well, which is great.
I'm so impressed.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then here, like you were mentioning, there's all the work items we can create in the future. And if you make an adjustment, this is a cool thing. If you make an adjustment in this client, for instance, you do not do advisory work and you decide that you don't need this, you just delete it out. Okay. And when you go to the next one in the series, so I go back to the series and I go to the next one here, it will pick up any changes that you make as it builds itself in the future. Because again, it's not so close to it based on the parameters we have. And there's no more revise, or there's no more advise. So it's a living, breathing thing that you can modify. And if for whatever reason you decide that you want to build these from scratch and not have them as a template, you can always save it as a template. So you can make adjustments, make changes, make it a template, you're good to go. So that's it overall, just so you know, because we went through this. If it looks like the one that, because there was one in here beforehand, this is what it looks like from what we were talking about. Mm-hmm. And so it's not much different. And again, we were able to do that pretty quickly. One of the cool things is you mentioned, Heather and Liz, you use Scribe, right? So go ahead and Scribe, and you can go into your particular sections here and you go to the details. This is a full HTML editor. You don't have to translate. You can just copy and paste in here, and all that will just drop in for your procedural steps. Pretty darn cool. There you go.
Now it's amazing.
Yeah. And again, if for those of you, again, that are starting from scratch, go check out here overall. There are a ton of things. Just pick what you're looking for. Again, maybe sales is something you're not comfortable with. Again, depending on your geography and everything, there's all sorts of things you can get to. Okay. And if you want to see the ones that are related to Happy Hour, just type Happy Hour. And again, you can find those 5 that are up there, as well as many more. Back to you. Did I take too much time, or was that quick?
No, I have goosebumps.
I know. And what the other thing I would say is, Jeff, for you, for those of you that are Intuit people like me, we use the Intuified Karbon, which is the Intuit practice management that has all the same features, but then it has a deep integration with the ProConnect tax, which is pretty cool. So there's that option as well. And
it integrates to QB Time,
yep.
QuickBooks Time. We're integrating across the entire Intuit suite of items. So again, for those of you that are interested in Intuit centric. So again, there's a comment there on Liscio. Yes, we've been working closely with Liscio. So we launched that a couple of weeks back, and that takes your client interactions to a whole nother level, interactions, so forth. And again, for us, it's really about integrating this to all the tools you know and love. So it's not meant to be everything to everybody, but it's meant to be your work, where your work gets done, and your workflow. So I'll get back to you, but there's those 10 steps.
Yep, there's those 10 steps. And Belinda was asking about the training, and I would just mention that they have great training. In fact, you guys have a training program for firms that they can opt into, right?
Yep. We have both. We both have a bunch of free options and group trainings. If you need one-on-one, those are paid additional services. Our help is extremely expansive. Our team is responsive. We have chat. And again, for us, we don't want you to hunt and peck and try to figure things out. We're there to help you out. It's just a different way of working, because it is both process improvement and it is change management. So we're aware of that as well.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right. I'm just going to go through. There are some slides in here that kind of go over what we did today and some more information about Karbon. That'll be on the deck that's up on our website, probably either later tonight or tomorrow, more likely. So I'm just going to head back and talk about our coolest thing. Our coolest thing this month, I'm not going to do a demo because we don't have time, but I'm going to tell you about it and how awesome this is. I am a huge fan of Jackbox Games. What Jackbox Games is it's a video game, but it's a collaborative video game where you're playing with a whole bunch of people. And we actually use this in our firm. Once a month, we have like a hangout where we have lunch and everybody orders lunch, and we actually play Jackbox Games for an hour. And it's a really great team building exercise. So they have, it's pretty inexpensive. I think one pack, which usually includes 5 or 6 games, is like $15. Sometimes it's $20. It does work on a PC. And what it does is basically you launch the game on your computer, and we would have the Zoom open, right? And then everybody would go to jackbox.tv on their phone, and they would enter in that room code and their name, and then see where the little question marks are. Everybody's little name would pop up there, and then we go through the game together, and you're actually doing activities on your phone, but they're showing up on the app. So this is a really, really, really fun thing to do with your team, also with your family, anybody. It's really fun. And there's actually there's a G-rated version. You have to turn that on, by the way, because we did that with my parents when they came and played with the kids. And my kids are teenagers, by the way, and they didn't turn that on, and it didn't go well. So you want to make sure before you play with your parents that you turn on the G-rated version. Otherwise it gets a little spicy. So definitely check that out. That's a really fun, coolest thing this month. So you can visit our website, theappyhour.com, where you can watch our recorded videos. So if you want to share this episode with your best friend and say, oh my gosh, I just saw the most amazing practice management app and you have to see it, you can send them over to theappyhour.com. You can connect with our sponsors, get our drink recipes, read our blog, send us a message. And don't forget to visit Karbon's website. Karbon, Ian, if there's any like kind of, link or something that for promo or anything, drop it in the chat, or should they reach out to you? What's the best way for them to reach out to you? We didn't do our poll. That's how they're going to reach out to you.
Do our poll. I'm
doing the poll. I was so excited about Karbon. I forgot about the poll. That's how they're going to reach out to you. I'm glad I said that. So, so vote in the poll, and I am going to send your email information over to Ian, and he will have someone on the team reach out to you so that you can learn more about Karbon. Oh my goodness.
That was a lot. Like that
was a lot.
Man, I feel like I'm going to have to go back and watch this episode again, because that a lot unfolded within an hour.
I thought you were going to say you're going to have to go back and refill up the glass.
Oh, shoot.
Right?
Do that too.
No, this was fantastic. And this is fantastic. And I didn't know that I could paste the HTML, and I learned something new, Ian. I did not know that, and that is life-changing to me. So thank you.
2 things, both the client task email section and the descriptions, they're actually HTML.
I didn't know.
Areas. Yeah, so you can actually, if you want to have an email that's fully HTML enabled, like you've got bold tags, you can put the code, you can put the tags in there, and it will pick up everything.
That's awesome. And Liz, I didn't know about the converting to the HTML thing in Scribe. So that's another thing. So that's awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and close out the poll. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm going to go, and I'm going to send everybody's email over to you, Ian, probably tomorrow morning. So join our Facebook group. We have an Happy Hour Lounge Facebook group, and Ian, you're allowed to join too if you're not already in there. It's if you want to come hang out with us, you're allowed to join too. And you can register if you're joining us via Facebook Live. Register for the Zoom so you can join the fun. You'll also get our newsletter and all the other great things that go along with that. So upcoming episodes. we have AR Collect. We have a couple of episodes with AR Collect. So automating your accounts receivable workflows in your firm and with your clients. And then we're going to be doing some ADP deep dives starting in July. We have 3 of them. So we're really excited about that. So huge thank you, Ian. You are welcome back anytime. I would love to have you like on every episode of Happy Hour, honestly, because I just love hanging out with you. So thank you to you. Thank you to Karbon and the rest of the team for making my firm's life easier too.
Thank you. Appreciate
All
that.
our, what's that?
I said we appreciate that. That means a lot to the team.
Yeah. And thank you to our friends at ADP as well. We love working with them as well. So what an amazing episode. I feel like this is one of the best episodes we've ever done. That's my personal thought. And I think, Liz, looking at the look on your face, you're feeling the exact same way.
I just loved it because this is one of those pain points that we have that hurts. I mean, like, you know, all of us suffer because this is what we do. We do our jobs, and our jobs are the work, and the work is the workflow. And so this is it. This is touching on the pain point that we suffer from, all of us. And so to watch you just fly through there and have all those templates, it's like, oh my gosh, we don't have to start from scratch because we have to take a break from the work in order to be able to create the workflow. So,
it is. It's like a beacon of light, because that is, like I said, it's the hardest thing is taking, documenting those processes. So if there's a way to make it easier and get it implemented quickly, that's huge. So awesome. Well,
okay.
Ian, virtual hug. Thank you so much for joining us. And to all of you, thank you. I will get your information over to Ian for those of you that would like him to reach out to you. And you guys have the wonderful rest of your Tuesday, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Bye, everyone.
Well.
Bye.